Hey guys, and welcome back to Regrexit. Brexit, England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit, England, a can of Heinz baked beans is now seen as a luxury item. I wonder if that goes for the cross and back well as well. I mean, me personally, I'm Heinz all the way. And when you go to, if you go to like a hotel or something like that, or you go to a cafe, right? Most of them ain't using Heinz beans. Even if you see like the big Heinz beans can at the back, they're not using that, right? They're using the home brand, which is what Brendan Clark Smith last night on LBC decided that he was going to tell people in this country, well, if you can't afford it, don't buy Heinz beans. Buy the cheaper brand. Buy that, buy the Tesco's brand or the Sainsbury's brand or the Marks or the Morrison's brand or the Lidl or the Aldi, right? Or actually probably the Marks and Spencer's probably cost you more than the Heinz, right? But you know what I mean, right? How the hell has this country got into a stage, yeah, where they're telling us now, right? An MP, right, who claimed in 2022 £275,000 in his expenses. That's on top of his wages. Because I told you already, yeah, that these people, they all live off like socialism, like a communism socialism for them, while we, right, the grockles, right, the people who they just wipe us off their shoes, right, while we're living in this capitalist poverty. Right, and they have the cheek, the audacity, and the liberty to be able to tell us, right, buy cheaper baked beans. Don't buy Heinz. Heinz is only for the likes of them. Heinz is not for the likes of us. Fuck you, is what they're saying to us. How dare you have to say, well, how very dare you, sir? But they dare, because the stupidity of the people in this country, right, to constantly vote against them. I mean, all we have to do is look in Scotland, right, and this is why the Scots hate the English, simply because you know what, the English keep imposing these far right governments on Scotland, and the Scots are much more left wing, right? If the English was much more left wing, this country would be such a nicer place. We would have proper housing, But if you notice how they go, oh well, the hard left. What you have to say, what is hard left? I'll tell you what hard left is. Tell you exactly what hard left is. Hard left, right, is if you support Palestine. That's what hard left is, right? Because right then they'll brand you as hard left and anti-Semitic and say, you know what, right, you're friends with Hezbollah. That's how they'll brand you, right? But yet for all, right, we have Tory MPs who are claiming £275,000, right, in expenses, telling us, right, that we mustn't buy the good beans, only buy the cheap stuff, right? And it's not like it's not like a can of beans, is £10 or anything like that. I mean, it was under 80p in it before Boris Johnson was in, and I think now it's well over. I'm sure it's well over £1 now for a can of beans, because I saw the other day in the shop here that the small can was £1. So it's well over £1 for the large can of beans now, And then we've got like Anne Widdecombe, who thinks in her tiny little mind, this virgin woman actually believes, right, to tell people, well, if you can't afford cheese sandwiches, the ingredients for a cheese sandwich, you shouldn't be having them. A cheese sandwich, I'm sure, is the cheapest form of sandwich you can get. The only cheaper sandwich you can get, yeah, is 2 slices with butter. All right, I'm sure. Right, or if you're going to buy one of them, like, some of them, they're probably not 49p anymore, but some of those spreads that cost 49p and nobody knows what the hell is in them. But one thing we can say for certain, very little meat. But if you're going to buy one of those and spread that between 2 pieces of bread, then maybe, just maybe,
that sandwich will be cheaper. But this is who these Tories are. You've got 30p Lee telling you, you know what, you can fix up your children for 30p a meal. Right? Or what's it? The one out of Romford who no one's heard of for ages because I think he's up on a rape charge. Right? This man will just turn around and say, you know what? When the people was getting like, what was it, a £20 uplift? I think it was. And he said, no, take that away from them because they don't need it. It's just something they want. And then when he was asked about MP's second job, oh no, they need their second jobs because they have families. They have families to look after, so they need their second jobs. But people who are at the lowest end of the country, this man's, take the £20 away from them because they don't need it. Who the fuck do they think they are? They're low life, they're scum, because that's exactly what the Tory MPs think of the people of this country. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me. A special thanks here to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go for all your messages, I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all the messages for definite. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. We have to start with Vauxhall, because Vauxhall have said unless the government renegotiates something with Brexit, they're going to pull the motherfucker out of this country. Exactly as Project Fair said. That, these companies, right? And let me tell you, that because it's Vauxhall's, it's their parent company. I can't remember what their name is now, but anyway, let's just say it's Vauxhall, right? And what they're saying is, with the, because with the new electric car components and that, sourcing their items from the EU is just become far too hard now, and they're not prepared to do it any longer. And let me tell you this. These companies have had hundreds of millions, if not billions, out of the government to stay here right now. They've already had that money, and look, things are still biting them so much so, right, that now they're just saying, you know what, renegotiate, right? I thought it was the German car companies who were supposed to come and say, listen, you will renegotiate a very good deal for Britain. You'll give them the best deal possible. They'll have a deal that has cherries on it, and they can pick them off and eat them whenever they want, right? But the amount of money that these big boys have had, right, and still they can't make it work, because it's very difficult when your government puts all this red tape in front of you. It's a famous Tory MP once said, it's like playing a game of cricket and your captain has broken all your bats. And the Tories, they don't understand. I don't think they understand any of those analogies themselves. Brexit was, it was always going to be a complete and utter disaster. We've got big businesses already telling us we're not coming to that country. Okay, that country we're not coming to. Right, England is a no-no. Right, once, right, the go-to place in the EU. This country was the first country that anybody used to come to when they was coming to the EU, right? Everybody, wherever they was coming from in the world, Britain was always going to be their first port of call. You know why? Because their second language, most of them, is English. So it's easier for them to, they wanted an English-speaking country so they could do business within Europe. And now what they've got Ireland, where they can do that. So that's the only way, right, that Britain is going to get anything, and that's if they're prepared to go to Ireland. Southern, even Southern Ireland they can go to. They can go to Northern Ireland, but whether or not people want to go and set up businesses in what's potentially going to become a war zone pretty soon is another thing altogether. But it's just, I was expecting, all of this, right, was warned about. We warned about all this type of stuff. And now, right, we have to see what move the government's going to make when Vauxhall say, you know what, yeah, we're going to be hightailing it out of here. Whether or not, it's a cry out for them to say, you know what, we just want some more money. Right, we want money. That's it, right? But I don't think it is. I think, right, that they're just telling the absolute truth. You have made it impossible for us to do business in this country, right? And, unfortunately, Right? You know, the people of this country actually voted for this. I mean, if you take the farmers, for example, because a lot of farmers right now are really complaining because you know why? Because their subsidies has been cut. The same subsidies that the government promised them. To, "Oh, don't worry, right? We will make sure that you get the same subsidies as you was getting from the EU. You get exactly the same because, you know, in the first place, it's our money in the first place. So you'll be getting the same subsidies. But no, you see, the difference was here, the EU would take that money and they would issue it to the right places. And now, right, next year, their subsidies money's even going down even further. Right. Yesterday, Rishi Sunak decided, you know what, he's going to have like this massive meeting with a lot of the food producers in this country. But for Rishi Sunak, everything is just a picture opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Because like 2 minutes after he was speaking to these guys, the pictures are on Twitter. Because that's what it was all about. He really wanted Jeremy Clarkson to come because Jeremy Clarkson didn't make it. He sent some of his farmhands, you know, who are obviously on the telly. I've never watched the show, but who are obviously on the telly. So he sent some of those guys. And, you know, the minute Rishi Sunak could get pictures straight up on Twitter, that's exactly what he'd done, right? Because, you know, these people, right, have no desire, right, to really do anything. They're just like with the working classes. Things really bad for you, yeah? Because you've got to remember, yeah, that this Brexit, yeah, has not affected one MP. None of them have been affected, right? Where people have lost their livelihoods, right? Thousands of people, I reckon a couple of million of people in this country have lost their livelihoods due to Brexit. Right. And, you know, I'm quite sure that if that was happening to the MPs, right, they would make changes to make sure, right, that, you know what, no, we can't be losing our businesses that we've had, you know, that's been in our families for hundreds of years, or all, you know, all the other small businesses that have had to close down because they can no longer do business with the EU. And now the big boys have stepped in. And Vauxhall, once Vauxhall has stepped in and say, listen, I want to see what move the government are going to do now, because Vauxhall have said this out loud. Vauxhall have said the quiet part out loud. It's like the people of Vauxhall, it's like they're Tory MPs. Anyway, my friends, I'm 2 minutes over on this video, but it was only about 2 subjects, so that's not too bad. My friends, this is By Any Means Necessary. I'm DMC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.